I'm inside and I saw Velma. It is produced by Charlie Grandy. My previous exposure was I first heard about this with, whoa, where's Scooby-Doo? I don't know where Scooby-Doo went. Where's the guy? And so I had to investigate the mystery, why there's no Scooby-Doo in the new Velma. So if you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. First episode starts, it's called Velma. Velma is just Velma-ing around. I really like the part where we see, oh, there's a locker room and there's a bunch of nudity. I only like that part because the amount that is covered, like the cleverness of the amount that is covered. You got hair covering the boobies. Also you have soap. I'm like, okay, cool. Immediately opens up with, man, don't you like it when the pilot of some episodes of television, they start with a amount of sexual gratuity and it's never persisted out the rest of the season or the rest of the series? Don't you guys just hate that? And they're like, yeah! And there's somebody like, oh no, this will be incredibly sexual. So that is a direct, hey, audience, you like sex? Here you go, there's gonna be lots of it. Okay, also, Velma, obviously Velma, she's wearing a hood right now. She's like, I'm gonna get you. You guys are bullying me, Velma's the weird one, as you might think. Of course, Daphne and Velma have some sort of feud going on, and it seems to be fueled by the fact that Daphne ditched Velma to be hanging out with some cool kids. And I'm like, Daphne, your brain is going to die after your high school. Okay, you're gonna be like, oh my goodness gracious, no longer is the thing a popularity contest between my social group. I have to go get a job and not be cliquey and bratty. Also, there's a lot of swearing. There's a lot of female dog swearing, which is fun. I definitely wasn't expecting the amount of swearing and the amount of sexual gratuity. What's the word? Dave, what's the word here? What am I thinking of? There's so much sex happening. And it seems to be very obvious who the target demographic is. Tumblr girls. Wanna know why I think that? Okay, Velma, she's like, it's only rich white men. They're destroying the entire country. And it's like whole political stuff just forced into Scooby-Doo. And I'm like, dude, stop it. I don't care, okay? Oh, Fred is racist against Velma because Fred thinks Velma is Mexican or something. And oh my goodness. Velma, the show slash the person slash the character, all three of y'all, why? Why must you make this? I could just imagine the amount of GIFs and pictures on Tumblr right now. You wanna know why? Because in middle school, I used to be on Tumblr all the time. I totally get the archetype. It's contagious once you're on Tumblr, because all of it is just like a small bubble. And then you guys are just talking to each other on Tumblr. Like, don't you know that the wage gap exists? Oh yeah, I'm so oppressed. I'm so oppressed even though I'm a white woman who has so much money for therapy. I'm so oppressed. I'm so more oppressed than like a poor person with no house. I'm so much more oppressed. I'm like, this is the target audience for the show. I'm not the target audience. So watching this, I was just sighing at the amount of, Daphne, I don't care about your politics, okay? Velma is in the locker room and she's getting framed for murder because there's this body with no brain. Why would there be a body with no brain? That's the mystery to solve. But Velma has hallucinations. In the right hand, it's like, you're gonna solve the mystery? No! And I'm like, wow. She needs to get on some medication or maybe perhaps some drugs. That's the next episode, by the way. For some reason, Velma is being framed. All two cops are like, oh yeah, we're bad at our jobs. We're gonna leave you 24 hours to find out who's the murderer or else we're going to arrest you. I'm like, is this justice? What is this? Also, these cops suck. As in, they're the worst cops ever. They're hilariously bad. They're like, oh my goodness, there's some sheet cake we can go get instead of investigating a crime. And I'm like, you guys are so fat. Man, I'm surprised at how slim your figure is in the show. Wow, Velma, you're gonna be so traumatized about the amount of hallucinations that you have. Why do you have hallucinations? And I'm like thinking, this is interesting. Why? But then, oh no, I know why she has hallucinations. It's because her mother abandoned them. Hey, Velma and I share the same backstory. My literally me character now. Awesome. But Velma's like, oh my goodness, I'm so distraught. My mother left me because it was all my fault because I wanted to solve a mystery. I'm like, no, that's clearly not obviously what happened. You psychotic female dog, you woman, come on, that's clearly not what happened. She clearly didn't care enough. She clearly just like walked away. Don't care about her. She's not in your life, no. You don't have to worry about it. She's like, oh, I'm no longer guilty. And then she's about to solve a mystery yet again. And then she's like, oh, I have another hallucination. We gotta figure out the problem with the hallucination. Why do I have hallucinations? I'm just thinking, Velma, you are not fun. I feel like you're a weirdo because you want to stay away from people, not let them get close. You're so judgmental, Velma. Why do you gotta be so judgmental? Also, I really like the fact that, oh my goodness, did you know that Velma is a lesbian? That's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm not fine with how they disclose it though. The way that the show introduces Velma as a lesbian is Velma's like, yeah, I know, I like girls. And I'm like, dude, your dialogue is forced. I should really mention all the exposition dialogue is so forced. It's just like hand over fist. It's like hand over fist. Like, I know what's happening. Yeah, I know. You're cheaply setting up some sort of plot. So, two characters just talk to each other instead of, I don't know, introducing that Velma has a crush on Daphne. You could do that, but instead you guys are introducing that there's a rivalry, the rivals. You could have introduced at any point, but Velma is like really into Daphne. Dude, instead of being like, oh yeah, I'm gay, so bigotry, no good. Or something like that. I don't care enough about the show to really quote it. I just care enough to really hate on it, which is my favorite type of watching experience. It's really hating on things. Oh man, this show is so fun to watch. There's also Shaggy, Norville. Has this food live stream that a bunch of stoners watch all the time. And what's interesting about his character is while him and Velma are driving in the car, he's like, I don't do drugs, drugs are bad. And then there's a blink and a silence, and I'm like, wait, is there a setup here? Is this supposed to be like an ironic thing? But then later in the episode, he's shown to have like, 420, drugs equal bad on like his screen, like the Mary Jane is no good on his screen. I'm like, okay, that's the second time. And then the third time, we see, Velma's thinking, might actually be Fred who did this. So Velma's at Fred's house and Norville is the getaway driver. And then the cops come. And I'm like, you know what would make this awesome? If Norville got arrested for having like a pound of the Mary Jane on him, that would be some sweet comedic justice. But no, you know what happens instead? The cops come and help Velma instead of arresting Norville. That's the obvious comedic answer. Why? Why did you just not choose to follow the rule of threes? Come on, why did you not? So Fred's being really creepy. He's like, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna do what I did to Brenda. And then he gets arrested by the cops, but he's gonna pay off Velma because he's insecure about his boyhood. Also, Daphne sucks. Daphne's like, yeah, I'm just gonna share some personal details about Fred, who's my boyfriend, to somebody that I don't like, Velma. And I'm like, why? Do you hate Fred, Daphne? Oh my goodness. But yeah, Fred gets taken into custody. And you know, Velma is Velma-ing about until BAM! There's another headless and a brainless body in the trash. And Velma's like, what happened to it? So that was the end of episode 1. It was such an experience. Man, I really want to hear what you think of the first episode. If you have seen it, please let me know what you think. I really want to hear what you guys think, because I am impassioned to talk about Velma. Oh my goodness, I have so much rage towards, especially towards the second episode. Not nearly as much as the first episode. The first episode was so hand over fist. Like, yes, I get it. Yes, I get it. You don't like white people and you really love lesbians. I totally get it, show. Okay, I don't care. Please, just stop talking about it and have an actual plot that isn't, the dialogue isn't just like some political nonsense. I don't care. I just want some actual plot. Also, it's interesting. The show is no longer like, oh, it's one and done per episode. It's episodic. It goes from one episode to the next episode. It's like a series. It's interesting. It's not like the original Scooby-Doo. So if you are interested in watching this, keep that in mind. So the second episode is The Candy Woman. Well, woe is in parentheses, which is such an interesting choice. You can tell that who created it was the women. The women created this show. So of course they have to really exaggerate. Whoa, man, whoa. I really don't understand why they chose to do that, but who cares? The episode starts with Velma's like, oh, well, if Fred didn't do it, how am I gonna live? How am I gonna, you know, the murderer's still out there. It's time for me to solve a case, solve a mystery. Oh man, I totally forgot to mention the most devastating part from last episode. Norville is like, hey, I like you. I really, really like you. He has a romantic attraction to you, Velma. And Velma just dismisses it like, yeah, that's the most funniest joke ever. Ha, 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 ha. Oh my goodness, Norville, you're so, And like, dude, chill out, Velma. You are the worst person in this series. You're the most judgmental one. And you're like, oh, everyone else actually sucks. It's like, no, Velma, you suck. You're the worst person here. I hope you get confronted with how much you suck later this episode. Foreshadowing. Velma is trying to prove that actually Fred wasn't the one who did the murder, death, killing. Fred is way too young. He's way too innocent to be a killer. Velma's father is a lawyer. The lawyer needs help making sure that Fred is innocent. Hey, could you talk about the thing? Could you talk about how Fred is innocent? And I'm like, hey, okay, I guess. I don't know how the legal system works. Is this legal? Does anyone who's animating care about the legal system? Animating, show director, anyone involved? Do they care about do they care about the legal system at all? Well, actually, you gotta prove that Fred's a child. So Fred gets dolled up. He's looking like a child. But then you know what happens? Well, it turns out it's raining and his eyelashes get on his nose. And wow, it's a Hitler joke. Fred is Hitler? Oh, who could have seen that coming? That totally wasn't predictable at all. Sarcasm. We also get to learn that whenever Velma is having the hallucinations, that it is best for Velma to be talking to somebody while it's happening. And of course, Velma is like, I'm gonna solve a mystery, and sometimes has a hallucination and is like, oh, I gotta talk to somebody about it. Man, the second episode, what's interesting is that Velma wants to uncover the mystery of her mother's disappearance. And I'm like, man, just accept the fact that she didn't care. But I guess Velma's like, well, she did love me, so why did she leave? Which is also an interesting mystery to set up throughout the rest of the series. I'm a little bit curious. Velma is like, wow, I need money, because Daphne is like, I'm gonna have you give me money for the case file. And of course, Velma's like, fine, okay, whatever. I'm like, okay, we're in an episode where whatever Velma's trying to do, she's going to do it poorly because she doesn't know how to make money. And guess what happens? That is exactly what happens. She's so judgmental towards the drug people that she sells to. She's selling drugs, by the way. Daphne is a drug dealer. That is canon in this universe. And it's honestly hilarious because it's like, I didn't expect it. The second episode gets a little bit better, especially Fred's portrayal, because it's like, I'm not a child, clean me, It's like a direct opposite to what he's saying, which I find to be hilarious. However, Velma is trying to sell drugs and does it poorly. Daphne's like, you know what, I feel bad after you were like impassioned about finding your mother. I'm gonna give you the case files. Oh no, you're having a hallucination? Oh no, how can I fix it? Immediately, 30 seconds before the actual thing that occurred happened, I was like, I'm gonna guess it. They're gonna kiss. And guess what happens? Oh, I'm Daphne, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna... And then they kiss, and then they make out. And it's like, okay, cool, at least this is fun. This is the most fun part of the show, is the fact that Velma and Daphne are gay. So that was the end of the second episode. The dialogue felt very forced in the first episode. I totally forgot that I didn't give a rating to either of these episodes. But the first episode, I would like to give a solid 4. It's okay. The animation quality is pretty good. Except for when it's not. There's only a few scenes where it's like very quickly like, oh, they clearly had some sort of sloppy artist here. But then it cuts away to a really good clean shot of the animation. I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine, I guess. I'm a big fan of the animation. I like the vibrant colors. I don't like the forced liberal stuff. And I'm not political at all. So if you tell me anything about politics, I don't want to hear it. I don't care. Okay? So it's just the fact that this is so stuffed with like, oh, the political agenda. Ooh, put in there. It's like, this is so obviously for Tumblr, teenage girls. Oh, I know the demographic. They're going to eat all of this up. I'm really glad then the second episode, when we see 3 times, looks like Daphne and Velma are bumping into each other and getting awfully close. They're going to tumble on top of each other. And then the third one was the kiss, and I'm like, hey, at least they did 3s this time. Also, Norville is like, I don't do drugs. Drugs are bad still. I'm like, dude, when is this bit going to end? This has to be a bit. I cannot accept the fact that whoever is running the show, Charlie Grangley. Why? Why'd you do this? Come on. But anyway, I do enjoy the cell shading and the designs. That's fun. I like the designs a lot. I think the artwork looks pretty clean. Just the subject material boggles my brain. I keep saying it because it does. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the character progression between the first and second episode is more than like a regular Scooby-Doo episode, but the character progression is like, romantic. It's I'm kind of intrigued just because I'm forcing myself to watch this show. I am not the target audience, and if you don't like forced political stuff in your media, I would not recommend this show to you. There's no Scooby-Doo, okay? They don't even address it at any point. Man, Daphne and Velma used to be BFFs, so they knew each other when they're younger. Just, they're in high school together. At least there's some added backstory, but it's okay. The second episode is just a little bit better. just cause, you know, at least they did the setup and the execution of the kiss properly. At least they set up the rule threes, okay? Whoever wrote this episode was probably on some drugs, which is good. Unfortunately, Norville is not a drug guy, and I feel like he would be, which is funny that he's not. So the second episode, I gotta give like a 4.5. The episode is called Velma Kai. I'm not sure what the reference is there, but this episode starts off with Velma having worse hallucinations because she kissed Daphne. That's all she can think about now. Wow, I got a kiss from Daphne. And it's fine. It totally makes sense that she's a type of person who doesn't get kissed a lot, and so she is hyper focused on this kiss. That's fine. However, I do have a contention. She has hallucinations in a prison, which is the worst place to get a hallucination, and is just banned from prison. I didn't think you get banned from prison. I don't know if this is a joke or not. I didn't really laugh. I just was very confused because it made me think, wait, if you get arrested and you're banned from prison, where would you go? Like, that doesn't make sense. I just had to think about the real world applications, because what if Velma was a murderer? Did a murder death kill at some point? I mean, would you just send her to county jail and leave her there for 20 years? No, there's not enough space for that, okay? You have to send her to prison. Come on, Scooby-Doo. You're taking the mystery out and putting the questions in. Me having to ask so many questions, why that is, and not the good kind. Speaking of good kind, there's a women's self-defense team training thing / tournament that occurs at the school, which is like, honestly, I would have liked a self-defense training class at my public high school, but no, you have to go to martial arts for that. And that's like $200 a month. Wow, that's crazy. But you know what's interesting? There's a joke set up that's like, oh, we have realized that many men, no ifs, okay, when they attack you, here's some principles to go do it. But of course, Velma, she's like, now they're being taught women's self-defense in public school, and I'm like, man, I would have loved to learn self-defense in public school. That would be so cool. But instead I had to do the pacer fitness test. It's supposed to be an overwhelming cut. And I had to run the 1.6 in the mile, and I had to do flag football, which was fun, but not as fun as discus, but that was only a track, that was an extracurricular thing. Hot diggity dang. So of course, there's the tournament for this women's defense tournament. It's supposed to be a bunch of women to see who's the least vulnerable woman. And there's a little joke that I did laugh at. There's a huge banner with like an entirely long title and a woman like hand cramps. I'm like, oh man, that's a funny joke. I laughed at that. But then it's, oh, we gotta see who's the least vulnerable. And there's a lot of, oh, we're gonna fight against other women. Pew, pew, pew. And it's Daphne versus Velma at the end, but then they both excuse themselves to the bathroom. And here's the actually interesting part of this show. We see Daphne and Velma talking about their relationship, trying to talk about their feelings. Obviously, Velma's really closed off, and so she's gonna be like, no, I don't actually like you. And obviously, Daphne's like really mad, and so she's gonna get really aggressive. And this is shown in the fact that she does a kick while she's like wrestling self-defensing Velma, which is like, oh, this is really interesting. I actually kind of want to see the relationship more. So of course they do a little battling and they go talk in the bathroom again, and they're actually open about their feelings. I'm like, just be open about your feelings in the first place, please. That made things a little bit less complicated. But of course, Daphne's like, yeah, I don't know. She's confused as well as Velma about their feelings towards each other. But because Daphne is popular, there's a social status quo that she has to uphold, which is an interesting take. It's an interesting lesbian relationship to explore, because it's like, oh, what if this was not allowed by social norms, like just because of popularity. I'm kind of interested to see where this goes, but then it's kind of defeated. Well, I guess like the point is kind of immediately halted with like a joke. And I am not a big fan of forced jokes. I'm like, okay, I see where this is going. Okay, stop with the forced joke, please. Like there's this one joke while they're battling something about election 2016, and I was like, okay, fine, just stop. That was a while ago. So this ain't 2016 no longer. Please go in the future. Live here. Well, I guess live here. Please do that. So anyways, so there's the cops. What are the cops doing here? Well, they're here to supervise. But I also want to mention there is a side plot with Norville. Norville is a guy. He's shaggy. Shaggy, not really actually. But I really like the fact that his father is a therapist. He's the school therapist. He's given a cardigan. Cardigan is interesting because he's given the power of the cardigan while being told the cardigan is being used to disarm people. Some sort of meta commentary on therapy, I guess. But yeah, he gives Norville the cardigan, and then cardigan is put on by Norville, and then he just glows. And I'm like, this is interesting. I can't quite place it, but I think I've seen this somewhere. If you want to help me out, please leave a comment in the comments below. But anyway, so Norville, being a therapist, goes to prison to pick Fred's brain to try to get Velma's love. And I'm like, Velma doesn't like you, Norville. Well, not so much doesn't like you as she's using you, thinks every time you confess your feelings to her is a joke. I'm like, chill. Come on. Velma is so mean. You gotta stop liking her, dude. For your own sake. Goes to talk to Fred. Apparently putting on this therapist jacket makes them like tell you about their feelings, which is all right. But like people snap in and out of it. So I'm curious about how long these coat properties work, the cardigan properties work, like how long it takes. Like before you have to like do another action, like buttoning up a button or unbuttoning a button, or maybe you have to like take it off and put it back on again if the cardigan stops working at any point. But now, yeah, we gotta flush Fred's brain out, and of course a bunch of prisoners are like, oh, I need a therapist. Norville's? He says yes. Doesn't go to his obligation, but instead a bunch of prisoners escape. And Norville has to deal with the fact that he kind of, I don't know whether to say he overbooked, like overbooked himself, or maybe he was too hung up on hanging out with Velma, just had different priorities. Either way, he's caused a lot of damage to this prison, and I don't know if the prison will be billing Norville for this. Now it is time for Velma and Daphne after Velma being like, oh, I have Daphne's journal, which is interesting because she just kind of holds it up as like, hey, I have it. Here it is. Look, I have it. She's not like reading anything. She's like reading the cover maybe, but everyone's around her, the audience is like, hey, this sucks. But then like further along in the episode, when this was mentioned, they're like, yo, you just read Daphne's journal? Like, no, her journal wasn't read. She just pointed it out. Hey, I have this journal, okay? This is why my stomach is rock hard. I have this journal. Look, everyone, I have Daphne's journal. I won. This is how you get personal, right? I have the journal. And then Daphne gets all sad. But come on, show. You had a part where she did not read the journal and then say in dialogue later that she read the journal. Who is trying to gaslight me? Is it the character? Because Daphne's telling this story to Norville, like, oh, what happened? And oh, she shared all of my details. So is Daphne a bad person too now? Trying to like manipulate Norville's retelling, like knowing of the events that occurred? Or is this just not looking back Is this a continuity error? I don't know. Maybe it could be. I want to think it's a continuity error. I don't want Daphne's character to be tainted. But anyway, now Daphne and Velma are friends, and that's how the episode ends. What a doozy. I went into this thinking, oh, you know, I might enjoy this. Maybe the first 2 episodes were a flop, but maybe the next 2 episodes won't be so much as a flop. And honestly, there is some direction in the story, but no. It felt like there is some overarching plot, right? But there's like, underneath this overarching plot, there's just a bunch of random stuff that's happening, and a bunch of the dialogue isn't necessarily trying to gain information on how to solve this mystery. Because every time that Velma is like, oh, I'm gonna solve a mystery, she has to have some hallucinations that still are here. And I feel kind of bad for her, honestly. But that's enough about that. Let's go on to episode 4. Episode 4 is called Velma Makes a List, but does she check it twice? Saying a Christmas episode. Basically, Fred is coming out of prison. He's not a murderer. He's proven not a murderer. And I'm glad for that. Because every time that Fred is on screen, he's like the funniest guy. Even though I feel like his dialogue is supposed to be somewhat emasculating when he says it. Like he says stuff about his small wiener, his small hot dog. It's not kerflumping enough, but instead it's like the delivery of the lines just make me laugh. I feel like Fred, in an attempt to make Fred hateable and emasculated, he instead seems like the funniest dude on the show, and everyone else is just kind of insufferable at Velma, or it's whatever, I guess. Also, there's not really a lot of stoner things that occur in these next 2 episodes, 3 and 4. I didn't really catch that many stoner references. Maybe they were more subtle, but no, they weren't like as blatant as the first 2 episodes. No way. I don't know if that storyline will continue, but we shall see. Now that Fred was not murdering people while he was in prison, there's somebody else doing it. He got released. And now there's a connection for 3 of the murderers. You ready for this? All 3 murderers were attractive women. And the police department's like, okay, we don't have enough money in the budget for us to have police details on every female. So we, middle-aged men, are going to make a list of the 5 hottest high school underage women. Who's the most attractive out of them? Did I mention they're underage and in high school? Yeah, this made me uncomfortable. I was like, wait, this is like downright creepy, okay? I'm not a fan of this. This doesn't seem to serve any purpose of like a joke. I'm supposed to respect these police officers. Or maybe I'm not supposed to be, because they're not really doing much to solve a murder, death, kill, crime mystery happening around town. But it's Velma's turn to make a list of the 5 hottest women. And of course she struggles. I get it's hot is subjective. Okay. What's hilarious though, she gives Fred the list. And Fred is like, okay, I chose it, Daphne plus a bunch of other chicks. What was your criteria? It's the can size. And I laughed at that. I was like, oh my god, that's so funny. Oh my goodness. Fred is the best part of this show. 100%. I'm so sad yet again that Scooby-Doo is gone. Let cry. Since there's a list being made and everyone is trying to make themselves really sexy, might I keep reminding you that these are supposed to be minors that are acting sexy. I don't like that. I'm just disgusted by this episode. Of course, 5 chicks were chosen. Now I gotta ugly them up, and you gotta get uggo lessons from Velma. And here's what these Uggo lessons should actually be. Hate everyone else but yourself. Blame everyone else but yourself. Eat a lot and blame everyone else but yourself. Blame a thing, but not the actions that you're doing. Blame a thing outside yourself, but not the actions that you're not doing actually. Yeah, that's Velma. She is so bad. She's such a bad person. I feel like the show is making me try to hate her. But I digress. Now it is time for Velma to make all of these women not good looking. And I guess the women are like, oh, I gotta put makeup on. So are these women supposed to be shallow? But actually they're not shallow, actually. They teach Velma a lesson. Hey, Velma, I actually like how womanhood is. I'm a woman and I like it, okay? And sexiness, good, Velma. You don't get it, because you don't own it, okay? Also, what's interesting, speaking of Velma, Velma gets in the car with her warrior dad's Gunnar. That's what Velma calls her, and it's interesting because I've never heard that word used. I had to look it up what it was. Put the word here, definition. But she's given birth because she is pregnant. How else would she give birth? And she's supposed to, you know, be having a baby in the car. Calls 911. Oh no, it's a traffic jam. We gotta let the people clear out. But when there's an ambulance here, people will clear out, Velma. It's not your job, okay? Here's some information, okay? I have a sibling who is a paramedic, and he says, hey, it's our job to go swerve through traffic, okay? I've seen paramedics just be on the side shoulders, like on like middle parts of the splitting between two like divisions of highways and like the freeways and stuff. Paramedics will be clever, and it's a general courtesy rule to get out of the way when there's a paramedic or some other emergency service vehicle coming. Velma, why do you not know this? What are you trying to do? Oh, look at these high schoolers. They're gonna not clear out of the way. She has like no trust in other people. Man, I just really hate Velma. But of course, she has to have some sort of distraction. So these 5 hottest females at this high school have a sexy dance. And Velma just pushes people. Get out of the way, get out of the way, get out, no, you're not supposed to be here. While Velma is being aggressive, Fred being given a book about females, a female book, forget what it's called. Fred reads it and is like, oh my goodness, I appreciate inner beauty. And it's like, you can do that by reading a book, not by some fundamental distrust of women that comes from childhood, generally speaking, that is deeply ingrained, that you can't just fix by reading a book. Fred, is he a character? I'm not sure. But he's like, oh my goodness, Velma has inner beauty. No, she doesn't. She's literally the worst person, okay? She is a bitter grape. That's what she is. A sour apple. Ooh, yeah, she's a sour apple, but she's super tart. So tart you can't even eat her. No one wants to eat her. She's just full of fat. Too fat, Velma. Lose some weight. Hit the treadmill. Okay, Velma. But no, she would rather complain, especially when Velma is at her house and Fred appears and is like, whoa, hey, Velma, I love you. And Fred is like, yeah, I'm being vulnerable and whatnot, Velma. It's like, I'm gonna think some mean things. Oh, he's so douchey. He's problematic. No, I don't like you. And then like shuts him out. I'm like, Velma, you didn't even give him a chance. This is the first time you've, been offered this and you're just gonna like deny it on the first time? Try, you liked him. It was even made a point that you liked him. But now that it comes to you don't even like him? Who are you supposed to be with, Velma? Why do you suck so much? Why do I hate you? Also, Norville is sad that Velma does not like him. So Norville meets another chick. And I'm like, Norville, go get him. I'm so excited for you. Okay, I'm so glad for you to be not talking to Velma. And that's how that episode ends. God, man. Jeez, these episodes Felt like a combination of Simpsons and Family Guy, but not done well. Family Guy specifically because there's a lot of cutaways that weren't specifically in the first 2 episodes. It just kind of like started happening, and I'm not sure why. Oh man, I just don't like Velma. Velma is not a nice person. I don't know why I'm rooting for her. She seems to have like the worst attitude when it comes to a lot of things, and it's just sad, honestly. She does isolate herself. Understandable. But that's how you become a social outcast, and her mindset reflects how people treat her. She does not trust people, and people can just see that. People can see that you don't trust them or like them, especially like teenagers. So that's not good. Velma, if you want to make friends, you gotta be open to friendship. But it's interesting that Velma and Daphne have some sort of friendship, but Velma clearly wants it to go further, and Daphne's not interested. That is interesting. That's the most interesting thing out of these arcs is Velma's and Daphne's relationship. I'd like to see it go further. I'm excited to see what happens with Norville and the chick that he saw and is talking to. And I'm like, man, this is great. All right, let's see what happens. Velma being mean and abruptly ending the episode with the Fred denial. Man, I was not expecting. I was like, wait, the episode's over? I did not feel like resolved at all. I just feel like there is the umbrella of a storyline, and then like some things, some like jokes that for whatever reason are in there. Some jokes that I want to be told, but jokes is like a very loose definition. But yeah, we're gonna have some jokes. We gotta loosely connect them to the overarching plot. But it's like, what? Is Velma a paper boat now? Are all these characters paper boats to the whims of the plot? That's a bad story. Oh, you want the characters to drive the plot. Oh my goodness gracious, this is just bad. I don't like how bad it is. It feels so bad that I feel like it has to be intentional somehow. Intentionally bad. Maybe there's something I'm not getting. I don't know. I just don't like it. It's not Scooby-Doo. There's some like murder sort of solving, but it's just there's a lot of uncomfortableness in between the plot that's actually happening. And I just would like the episode to be all about Velma being like, oh, well, I gotta talk to this guy and I'm dealing with hallucinations, right? You can make, the plot about that. Exclusively about that. Talking to Daphne and being like, oh, well, lost Kindle friendship. Dealing with some things, though. But, like, she's just straight up rude the entire time. Makes me not like her. I feel like if Velma was not so unlikable, then this could kind of work if it was, like, written better. An interesting concept. I think I have a prediction about the end of the series that the Scooby gang minus Scooby will reunite. So I'm curious as to see what happens. Now for my final rating. So for episode 3, I gotta give it a solid 3. And for episode 4, I gotta give it a solid, 1.9. No, Fred is good. Fred is the entirety of the 1.9. Everything else just made me uncomfortable. Fred really saves the show for me. The animation, it's fine. I did pause on a couple of frames that was looking at Fred, and I was like, wait, hold on, that arm is drawn wrong. There's the arm is just floating, and instead of the arm being connected to connected directly to the arm, it's just a little oval thing, and then it's an arm midway up the circle. It's but the edges are supposed to touch. They're supposed to touch. Anatomy. I don't know if they were being very fast with the animation. I don't know what the animation process was. If you have any notes, please tell me. Episode 5 is called Marching Band Sleepover. You might expect that most of the episode would be about a marching band sleepover, but let me tell you really quickly what happens in it, because nothing really happens. First of all, we have Norville and Gigi are in a new relationship. Velma, being a bad person, is first going to be like, oh yeah, I'm totally supportive. And then later on, she's going to miss Norville, but then she's going to flat out say to Norville, yeah, I miss you because I use people. And it's like, is this funny? Comedy? Haha. This isn't the worst thing that I have contention with in this episode. I have notes, so I actually know what I'm gonna say, because, oh man, this episode really made me mad. As a former band student, the establishment, the police people setting a curfew. Oh, everything is canceled, including the marching band sleepover. But Velma is like, I don't want to have this marching band sleepover, but then has it at her house. It's to get something. What? It's to get Norville to her. Wow. Did you notice that? Velma is so easy to see through because she is just deliberately trying to use people and to have Norville. Maybe she likes Norville? No. There's no hint of that. She doesn't really like anyone. A lot of the jokes are mostly just her saying, oh yeah, haha, I don't like people. Under boob sweat. Yeah, haha, hilarious. As a woman, I have never used under boob sweat to describe anything to any man. Why do these creators really not like male audiences? It seems that I don't know any male audience would like this, mainly because it's just so disparaging. Also, I should mention that Velma is a little racist herself against Daphne. There's also a Daphne subplot that's happening as well at the same time. You know, she's a Krista Coves. Well, turns out her parents are in a gang. Okay. And they abandoned her or something, or she has the idea that she got stolen by these 2 lesbian cops, and it's like, why? Why would some random person just steal a baby? This isn't Clown World, Daphne. Back to the sleepover, which, by the way, I'm being so scattershot because the episode is so scattershot. The marching band segment only comprises of maybe like a good 5-10 minutes. Not even 10 minutes. I'm giving it a lot of credit for 10 minutes. The entire episode is called Marching Band Sleepover, but it's not the entire episode. All right, I'm gonna pull out my notes because, oh man, here we go. I don't think the creators like band students at all. They're misrepresented as if they are garbage people. Here are my notes, okay? First of all, the trombone kid. There's one trombone kid in the band room. Get a shot of him, and he's leaning on the trombone slide part like it is a cane, and the bell is facing upward. Bad. First of all, you're supposed to have the bell facing downward. You're not supposed to put a lot of pressure on the slide, because if you put a lot of pressure on the slide is what makes the notes go change. If you have any resistance with the slide, like it's dented, then that is a bad trombone putting pressure on the slide like this. And also the top of the bell, which by the way, influences the tuning because there's like a little part at the top that's like very like fine tuned to like make sure you're in tune. It's really complicated, but like holy dang, dude, why would you just like want brass to dent, which by the way, very easy to dent brass compared to other metals. Why would you do this, kid? Some of the trombone position, hand positions are right. That's good. The trombone and the trumpet are not MIDI. And by that, I mean, it's not like computer. It's not like from like a computer, a keyboard, electronic keyboard with programmed sounds that one note will sound like a trombone and it's like electronically pitched to be representing different notes, but it sounds electronic. it sounds like they brought in actual musicians, which I appreciate. What I don't appreciate, though, is we see a scene, very quickly, a trombone slide hits the side of Daphne's head, and it's doing a glissando, right? But the glissando, even though the slide is being pushed outward, the note is going up in pitch, which is not how a trombone works. I have 5-year in trombone playing experience, so when it comes to a trombone, okay, if you go from 1st position to 7th position, this dude, not changing his embouchure at all, would go down in pitch. If he was changing his embouchure, which it didn't sound like he would be going up in pitch, but it sound very disjointed and not smooth. So this was animated wrong, okay? There's also a joke that I don't think most people would get. Velma says, don't use that plunger as a mute. You'll get E. coli. If you don't know what a mute is a little thing that goes over the bell, like on a trombone, kind of hold it, you'd hold your trombone by the bell in one hand and control the mute. So a plunger mute, it just looks like a plunger, right? And it warbles the sound effect. So a plunger mute, there's several different types of mutes. There's plunger mute, there's straight mutes. Those are the only 2 types of mutes that I've used, but there are electronic mutes that exist. It's presumed that these trumpet players are so gross and needing of a mute that they're going to use a toilet plunger. Unhygienic? I don't think the creators band people. And also they're shown to be eating furniture throughout because they're not giving food. Very negligent. There's also a nice little war waging between Velma and Gigi, and they're bad at playing the flute. And I can tell you how. Okay, they got their fingerings down, but the way that they're not full-bodied, they don't have that good of air control of the airstream into the instrument that makes it sound full-bodied. So they're intermediate. It is a good attention to detail, but it is insufferable, and I have to agree with the show that the flute is insufferable. And also, the show keeps telling me that Velma is smart, but she doesn't seem to be very good at anything. Oh my goodness. Fred. He's kind of lost the funniest factor to me. I mean, his delivery of lines is great because he is the best character. He's supposed to be represented as the worst character in the show, but since everybody else just is written horribly, in my opinion, and Fred is actually a guy, okay? He's a guy that I believe exists. He just wants to learn more about feminism, and there's a fun feminism quote that he says oh yeah, male feminism going half far. Done. That's commentary. That's actual proper commentary, okay? The other stuff, just blatant racism on Velma's part against white people and Asian people that Daphne is. Oh my goodness. And plus, I actually I'm not political, but I actually since there is an actual political take that I've heard that exists in the world. Episode 6 is called The Sins of the Fathers and Some of the Mothers. Sounds like a reference. This episode starts with Velma curious about her mother. There's some backstory on how her father was a workaholic versus, now that he has a newborn baby, he's mostly focused on that, but then he's a workaholic still. And there's some there's some fighting between Velma and the dad, which is pretty good because it's commentary on, workaholic dads exist and missing out on your daughter growing up and the daughter kind of expressing her feelings. I feel like there is some good point to an episode, and then it's immediately covered with dumb stuff. Velma's trying to look for her mom. She has hallucinations. And she's like, the root of my problems is that I have daddy issues, not because that I have mommy issues. My dad is not believing that she got kidnapped, or he thinks that she left. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Velma, you're gonna try to convince your father. And the way that she convinces him, I'm like, man, if I were the father, I would not even try to believe. Only in like a very life-struggling instance, like, oh, you're about to die, Velma? Well, that's not good. Maybe I'm going to believe you. But hallucinations, whenever she encounters a step to knowing her mother's mystery, she has a hallucination, which is just the plot being completely stalled. And then we have more teen drama stuff, which is not intriguing at all. Like, I don't feel compelled by these characters. However, I do like how I do know a lot of the main cast characters plus Gigi. I know Gigi's name, so that's props to the writers for that. Thank you for forcing me to remember their names. Jinkies, there might be a ghost now that I'm completely in the dark. Well, I'm gonna continue with this review because I have notes. Like, first of all, okay, Velma needing to find some more information about her mother's disappearance. She goes to the principal. So the principal's mother was a mad scientist who can make a brain live outside of its body. And so some general guy is like, oh, I need you to perform some experiments, and we're gonna have a secret code word for it. You wanna know what it is? The program is called Special Covert Operations Brain Initiative. It is an acronym for Scooby. The line that Velma says right after, Scooby, what does Scooby do? Made me groan. Wow, that was awful. Thanks for that, great. There's also a part where Norville and Velma are talking about how their dads are betas. More specifically, how Norville's dad is a beta, and then he learns later, kind of overcomes that fact, actually. And then he's like, oh, well, I'm alpha. My dad's a beta. I'm gonna go break all the rules, be cool, too cool for school. And there is some, like, reference to the two girls who are missing a head in the Scooby initiative, but then, like, nothing else is done about it because Velma has more hallucinations that almost cause her to die twice. Also, there is a little bit of a guilt that is kind of forced at the end. Gigi has an allergic reaction, and there were no EpiPens, so now she's in the hospital. And Norville feels really bad, and I'm like, man, really, the hallucinations? I hate the hallucinations. They're just stalling the plot. Also, more tie up on the Daphne thread. Her parents abandoned her while she was hanging out with her parents, the gang that they were part of, and the parents just left her. Yet again, wow, the parents actually abandoned you because the lesbian cops were like, yeah, we actually just found you. They just kind of left you there, okay? Daphne didn't believe it, now she does. Of course, the parents abandoned her yet again. Man, Daphne, I feel you. I like how there's some emotional connection between Daphne and the lesbian cops. It's nice. There's some nice moments, but the nice moment is broken when Velma stumbles into a place and picks up a piece of paper. Jinkies! Why'd you say Jinkies? It was on this piece of paper. And then she just says Jinkies, and then the last line is, oh, is that gonna be a thing? It's like, no! Stop just forcing it in for fan service. It's not gonna work. I'm just gonna hate you more. Okay, first of all, now I have to rate these episodes. I am cold. The writing is just getting kind of more mediocre. It's not getting like kind of bad. It's kind of bad. It's really bad. But it's not as bad as like the police have to make a list episode, whichever episode that was. Man, I already forgot because I want to get Velma out of my head immediately after revealing. Oh my goodness. And then every time I watch it, I'm reminded of what happened again. I'm like, oh my goodness, this show! It exists! It got cleared for a second season, I heard. The 5th episode, I'd say, because it gave me mad issues. It gave me so much rage. I gotta give it a 2. It's not as bad as the one where everyone is trying to sexualize teenagers. But I took personal offense, so that's why I give it a 2. And then this other episode, I mean, it's a lot of exposition. It's kind of just like, oh, is it motivated? Loosely, not really by anything, really. Well, I guess it's gonna be 2.9. Yeah, that's what it's gonna be. Man, I'm really cold. I do these daily. The episode starts, we're seeing, actually, first of all, I noticed that the animation was a little bit cheaper than the other 6 episodes. And by cheaper, I mean there's a lot more use of still frames. There's a lot more use of animating from within still frames, meaning the base drawing is just like maybe 4 people, right? But then all you have to do to animate those 4 people is you only have to animate one person at a time, doing limited movement. It's like maybe a quick hair turn or maybe a quick like blink, which isn't that many frames of animation. I would know, I'm an animator. So now there's Fog Fest is happening. What is Fog Fest? It's a festival on the pier. Fog? It's the foggy beach. Okay. They also set up that objects move within this fog. Right quickly at the beginning, when Velma and Daphne were talking to each other at some point when they were a lot younger, they're running towards each other and their clothes switch. Okay. That has been established. The killer is supposed to be at Fog Fest, you see. And Velma isn't able to go because she doesn't have a date, but I guess guys can go alone, which honestly doesn't really seem very safe. It just means that this town doesn't really like guys, honestly. That's kind of my read into it. This town wants to protect young women who are the target demographic for the murderer. So it makes sense, yeah, you gotta go with the date versus single guys, go alone. Velma caused the sexism. I call it kind of weird, but it makes sense in a sense that maybe you shouldn't have all the ladies just be alone, okay? There's a serial killer out there to get you. Velma needs to get to the Fog Fest because there's the killer. The killer is here. Oh no, what would happen if they killed people at this Fog Fest? Also, Velma dresses in a tuxedo suit thing, has her hair down, slicked back, and goes to Fog Fest and be like, oh, I'm totally not a woman dressed like a man. And it's like, if we're in reality, I know this is a cartoon, but if we play in reality, like at all, then people would be like, oh, you must be a female dressed as a girl, get to the back of the line, okay? But no, they're like, totally ignore that. They don't care about whatever she just said. They're like, oh my goodness, you're a handsome man. Manny is the name that Velma gives herself for the man version of herself, and then she goes around just being a guy. Here's the most egregious part of this entire episode, okay? First of all, she calls herself Manny, which is fine. It's kind of like my level of disguise if I'm going to be somewhere disguised as a guy. But honestly, that's fine. But what isn't fine, though, she then is like, oh my goodness, I can do anything now that I'm a guy. I can be bad at stand-up comedy. If you've ever watched Kill Tony, no, that's inaccurate. You cannot do, no. You're actually, if you're bad at stand-up comedy, just stop. Just like, it doesn't matter what gender you are. You gotta know, like, comedy. You gotta have it in your blood or something. You can't just be like, oh, and that's what I said, get out of here, lady, and then everyone laughs. It's like, no, actually. Incorrect. I would not laugh at you. I would boo you off stage. I'd probably throw a tampon. Also, this episode wants me to think that men get handed everything in life, but that's literally impossible, okay? How could you get handed everything in life if you're 48% of the population? The minority of the population, by the way, 52% are women. Women get handed everything, actually. That's the more honest truth of it all. If you're a woman, you can get away with a lot more than a man can. Also, I love reading my notes because there's this one part where Velma is walking out of the men's bathroom and is like, oh, they didn't harp on me to wash my hands. And I'm like, is this supposed to be a men don't wash their hands joke? Because it just makes me think that Velma is gross. Like, they didn't, like, pin her down and be like, hey, you're not washing your hands when you leave. Like, she doesn't normally want to wash her hands like a civilized adult. Please wash your hands every time you use the bathroom. If you don't, then nasty. Velma, you're nasty. I just kind of said ew when Velma said that. I was like, I don't like you, Velma. Why would anyone want to be your friend? No one wants to be your friend because you're disgusting. Also, there's a part where we see Manny talking to Daphne. Daphne is drunk and Daphne's like, oh my goodness, you look so delicious. Meanwhile, these are children. This is underage drinking. I do more care about the fact that she's still saying, oh, I'm still a female dressed as a male. She still keeps bringing it up. And the fact that Daphne apparently supposed to be smart here isn't because she ignores her completely. Or maybe the episode is trying to tell me that everyone ignores Velma for a good reason. But if you just listened with your ears, and I don't know, not with your drinking liver, don't listen with your liver, listen with your ears, Daphne. She's not. She's like, oh, I'm totally gonna ignore this. I don't care, okay? I'm gonna be like, you look like somebody I know, okay? You look a little like Velma, but I'm not gonna be suspicious. No way. But Fred, big ol' Fred, good on you, Fred. Oh my goodness, Fred. Coming in clutch, rips off Velma's mustache. Must be painful, Velma, having that mustache ripped off of you. I thought it was a disguised mustache, but she said it was her real mustache. And it's like, how could you grown that mustache so quickly? That's literally impossible. There's a limit to how fast human hair can grow. And I thought I grew hair fast. Daphne does a really cool thing. Talking to Velma is not a cool thing that she does. Instead, she's underneath the pier with Velma. They're apologizing. I'm sorry for being such a bad friend. I'm like, this doesn't feel genuine, Velma, okay? You just sound like you're trying to get Daphne to be your friend. You must be very obsessive or something. Daphne sees the killer behind Velma and does not let Velma get stabbed, which is unfortunate. That would end this entire series. I would love to watch a series where we see everyone but Velma in Velma. Would you want to see that? Instead, Daphne kicks. Does a little kick of the little head of the killer. The killer is wearing this metal head thing. So I'm like, oh, must not hurt him. Because he keeps chasing them. And there's a whole chasing scene gag. Also, this seems to be something like homecoming or prom where there are kings and queens. I wouldn't know. I never went to those dances, but I have performed marching band there. Oh, who's going to be the queen and king? Who is it going to be? Oh, it's Norville and Gigi. I spoiled it for you. There's only one good joke in this entire episode. So, we have Gigi and Norville standing next to the trash can. Gigi is like, I don't like this. Throws the crown into the trash can, right? And then Fred comes along. He's like, oh, a crown. And then he just like goes into the trash can. And then while he's in the trash can, he's saying, who's pathetic now, father? While he has a bunch of trash on his head. It's very funny because it's very pathetic. Also, the killer disappears in a puff of smoke, like I mentioned in the fog earlier. Oh yeah, there's a scene that I did not like that much. I was like, oh, this is so cheap. Screw you. You switched the killer's blade with a churro while the killer was about to stab Velma. Man, why couldn't you end this series already? But yeah, there's that. That's the second use. I felt like if they really wanted me to really believe that this is a thing and not just for Velma not to get stabbed, then probably use another case of those fog switching up something before having them switch up the knife with the churro. That should have been the third time it happened, okay? That should have been the third. The killer left his phone. Wow, it's so hilarious. And also, at the end of the last, like the post-credits The post credits after the episode is ended, we see Fred. He's getting napped by the killer. And it's like, no, Fred, do not have me lose Fred. I like Fred. Fred is like the only good character. If you take that away from me, I'll be so sad. That's how the episode ends. Like I mentioned before, the animation's noticeably cheaper. I did notice a little bit of like pen overbleed from transitions from one still to the next still, just like very briefly. And also a lot of the line work, especially around Daphne's collar, was thicker than like her head. It's like, oh, a good way to like clean line work, like make sure no one notices the mistakes of the line work, is really thicken it. And so I found that to be really weird. I was like, wait, why are you having the line art there artistically? Why would you have it thick there? If you're gonna have it thick in one part of the image, have it thick another part of the image. So we know it's more consistent. So we know it's purposeful, not just to cover up a mistake, a drawing mistake. This episode of Velma, Fog Fest, more like Cope Fest. I gotta give this episode a solid 3. There's nothing much else to say about that. Episode 8 of Velma in the Woods. Oh boy, first starts with seeing Velma in the woods and Daphne. And in good old-fashioned Velma sense, she's blaming everything on Daphne. This is all your fault, Daphne. It's like, how did they get here? All right, 2 days ago. Okay, cool, title card inserted. 2 days ago, they have the phone. There's more egregious stuff in this show than just magic hacker powers, okay? There's the fact that last episode, Velma found a phone number with the jinkies that she had. Oh, there's a phone number, I gotta go Fogfest, there's killers there. Thanks, that was, But this is this episode. This episode, they hacked the killer's phone using a UV ray. I guess that's not technically hacking, but they see, oh wow, it must be boo. I got the passcode, now we're in. Okay, now there's a picture, there's one picture. We're at the Crystal Coves, we gotta go there. Now they're going there. Oh wow, Norville and holy diggity dang, don't you have a nice cabin down there? Down at the mountains or the Crystal Coves, at the place we're trying to go. And Norville's like, yeah, I'm gonna ask Gigi because it's hers, and Gigi just wants a time alone with Norville. I understand. She's like, holy diggity dang, why are you so obsessed with Velma? Velma, not a good person. Why is Norville in love with Velma? Okay, that is a question that I want to answer. If I don't have the answer, I want it to be answered. Velma even lies to Daphne to get her to come. Velma has no more hallucinations, and so Daphne was only going to be there in order to help Velma with her hallucinations, but she's not having them anymore, so there's no reason for Velma and Daphne to be friends. But Daphne is hanging out with a chick, and Velma is jealous of that chick, so Velma lies to Daphne saying she does have hallucinations to get her to go on the camping trip, the cabin trip. I was gonna be mad if they were gonna do a cabin in the woods, because if they even tried to touch the premise of cabin in the woods and not doing it well, I would've been so mad. Cabin in the woods, perfect. Fred is kidnapped. Yeah, he was kidnapped since the end credit scene. But where is he? He's with 3 brains. Oh, those brains, the ones that were removed from those girls. Yeah, they're being preserved and they're talking brains jars, and they're annoying. Fred is apparently drinking the goo, the brain goo, and having lots of sex with the brain goo. Of course, this isn't shown, but in classic Fred dialogue, perfect. Man, this is hilarious because Fred is believably supposed to be like a garbage person within his elite family because he doesn't know how to like cut his own food. Yeah, I wouldn't say garbage person. I'd say he's more like, A childlike person is probably the closest thing I can really think of that. Childlike person. But would a child have sex with brain juice? I should also mention, even though Fred is very good, a very bad part is the lesbian mom is being meta now. They're talking about, debating about title cards, when to use them. Man, audiences won't know unless there's a title card. And then there's a title card throughout the rest of the episode. This title card be like, oh, this is what we're doing now. I'm like, great, thanks. You know what this really makes me think it is? Velma in the Cope should be the name of the episode. Those precious seconds used just to have black and white text on screen. Those money that's supposed to be used to animate that equals a person's time, labor. That labor and time could be spent towards another part of the episode. Which, by the way, this episode still is very still-framey to me, except for in the action moments where they're falling through the ravine several times. Also, speaking of ravine, Velma, she's like, oh, you guys just gonna accept that you guys are in your own filth? And it's like, oh, did Velma piss herself? Thanks, thank you so much. And then they fall again, deservedly so. And they fall into some mines, find Fred via these mines. Honestly, at this point, I'm like, oh, I'm actually enjoying the only part of the show that's good, other than Fred, is that we have the Crystal Cove mines. Is this part where we're at is an extension of these Crystal Cove mines. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is intriguing. Let's continue further. Now Velma has no more hallucinations so she can find her mother. How is she gonna find her mother if people think she's dead? Oh, we found Fred. Oh, wow. Ravine is cracking because it was established earlier. Oh, the caves, if you speak louder than a whisper, the caves are gonna collapse. So they go to find Fred. And they find Fred, and Fred is running. Take note of this because this is also the only good joke in this episode coming from Fred yet again. Fred is running towards the entrance of the cave. He screams, help. Then the cave starts to collapse. And then he says, oh no, I have to yell louder to be heard over this collapsing cave. Help! And then he screams help and the cave collapses on him. I found that to be funny. What I didn't find to be funny is during this collapsing cave we have Norville and Gigi working out the relationship issues because Norville tried to save Velma over Gigi. So obviously Norville likes Velma more, just like at a biological standpoint, it seems like. Instinctual standpoint is probably the more correct term. During these caves going a-rumbling, one of the cars goes down. And then they are driving through this collapsing cave. Uh-oh, are they gonna make it? Also, who is they? I didn't mention this. Velma is collapsing. Someone grabs her from like the collapsing ravine underneath her. Grabs her from free fall. It's Velma's mother. And I'm like, oh, actually, I was not expecting this at all. And then we have Velma's mother, who I didn't see before any of this point. Velma's mother is driving this crazy car out of this collapsing cave. And because of the collapsing cave, the car that I just mentioned before, collapsing underneath, they drive on top of that car like a ramp, and they get out safely. And then they have a big ol' hug before Fred ruining this moment goodly by saying, oh, these brains stink, the jars are starting to stink. It's like, yeah, you put not brain goo, preserver goo in that goo. You put your goo in that goo. Also, Velma asks out Daphne, which is fine. I didn't like the mom being used for convenient, so I gotta give this episode, a 3. They're both 3s. Episode 9 is called Family Woe Man, and I say woe like that because woe is in parentheses. Interesting choice for that. I keep saying interesting during these reviews because I don't know the thought behind it. Do you know the thought behind it? Let me know if you do. The episode starts, we have Velma's mom is back into her life, so she's at the hospital, but you can't make her mad for 72 hours in order to help her remember who done did it, who's the serial killer actually. Weird time restraint. I don't know if amnesia works like that. Her amnesia is very weird and very convenient for the plot. It's like, oh, well, actually, I do remember who the killer is. I remember random flashbacks of me going into the underground. And it's like, why does this matter? Why do these flashbacks just randomly matter all of a sudden? What? You just going underground? That doesn't really serve much of a purpose unless your purpose is to illustrate the journey of going there, the journey of, encountering the serial killer that you only remember steps in. But the show did not really portray that very well. There's only a couple of flashbacks, and the flashbacks were not really connected to it was not like a consistent storyline that I could tell, because wow, it's just so wacky not in a good way. Also, I mentioned she's not supposed to be mad, but there are certain things that occurred while she was gone, okay? First of all, she was thought to be the person who is the bad person, the person who has left the father, and so the father gets a new girlfriend and has a baby child, and the entire dilemma of the episode is to hide this child and the girlfriend from the mother, who was thought to have left the father in like a really bad, terrible person way. But Velma is like, oh, she disappeared. Of course, the father has great instincts in thinking that the mother is a bad person, because there's a twist that is so mind-boggling that I have to explain a little bit later on in the video. Oh, jeez, dude. Come on. Also, I should mention that Daphne and Velma are now a couple, which is fine. That's fine. It was gonna happen. That's totally okay. They kiss a couple of times. What's interesting, though, is that the pair of glasses that Velma wears is the same pair of glasses that the mother left behind. And so Velma's like, oh, here's that pair of glasses, okay? Check this out. Here, mother. And then mother is like, oh, I found a clue. And it's like, oh, God. Also, I'm reading my notes and I say ugh a lot in the notes. Also, those same glasses is a device to have a flashback that doesn't mean anything, but she's like, I'm remembering, ooh. It's like, I feel like you're taking me on a spin. You know what I actually feel like Velma's mom character is doing based on her behavior? I feel like she knows the entire time who's the serial killer, but we have just her, for no reason, stringing along everyone. Oh, I remember. Oh, I don't remember. Oh, I do remember. Even though it's showing us flashbacks, I just feel like she's stringing them along till the very end, where she reveals who is the serial killer, and you're not gonna like this. Dang. I got a spam call. Keeping spam calls. The next spam call I get, I'm gonna ask them about Velma. Also, from her mother, she gets a gift of the red shoes from, like, classic OG Velma. She's like, I want these. But more importantly, though, she starts to realize how bad of a person she is. But she's like, oh, I'm a bad person, so I'm gonna try to do the right thing, but still terrible. Like, fake, very, very fake character growth. Like, she's... one hand says, oh, I'm sorry, and then, like, does the bad thing yet again in, like, the next beat. And it's like, oh my goodness gracious, Velma. Also, Daphne's friends suck, of course, because why wouldn't they? They're popular, and they only care about being friends with popular people. But imagine being exiled from that popular group, which Daphne and Fred have been, actually, and now they're dealing with that, which I got interested. It was very quick, though. A lot of the story beats in this episode are just very quick. It feels like they're just trying to get all of their jokes in, because this is the 9th out of the 10th episode in this season. Also, because they're social outcasts, I really like Fred. I mean, I've liked Fred this entire time, but Fred has a great line. Okay, so Fred is sitting next to a bunch of bees, right? And Fred says, "Daphne, shush, you'll upset the garbage bees. My only hope is to be accepted as their queen." And you know, I really like the delivery. It's very funny. Of course, Daphne ignores it, just like everyone ignores everyone in the show. Man, if you didn't have any basis for human interaction, you would think, oh, this is how people speak to each other, I guess, is to ignore the other person completely, just be interested in their own stuff. Also, more shenanigans, such as Mother is interested in why there's a random baby and a girlfriend here, because they're still on that plot, by the way. And instead of explaining, hey, you have amnesia, you've been gone for like 10 years, you've been gone for a long time, you know, explaining her the truth. No, this family of liars, more specifically Velma, is like the biggest liar. She's just compulsively lying all the time. She's like, actually, it's my baby, and the father is Norville. And it's like, great, now they have to take care of a baby, and by take care of a baby, I mean Velma tries to push it off. And so when Norville comes, Norville, by the way, is shown to leave when he's tasked to be a father. While Norville is driving away in his car, Velma, like the bad person she is, drops the baby. And then the baby rolls out, and then the baby mama, actual baby mama, pounces to the baby, and then they're locked outside. Wasn't that funny? Why? It just makes me think that Velma sucks. The show has already acknowledged that Velma sucks. There's no redeeming factors about her, so why make a story about her at all? That's really my question. Really, why? Why would you make her a character? I feel like my personal experience with characters and things existing is I try to learn from them. A thing, oh wow, what can I learn from this thing that's in front of me? I guess the ultimate lesson to this show is what not to do, what not to be. Don't be like Velma, because she ultimately sucks in the end. But there's no consequences for Velma either. So, also, Norville comes back to take care of the baby, and Velma pushes the responsibility onto Norville. Typical Velma. Also, Fred has his head in a toilet, which is hilarious because he's practicing getting swirly because he's never been swirly before. I'm like, interesting, you've just always been popular. I'm actually really intrigued to see Fred's arc here. If there is one, I hope there is. If Fred's just not a constant joke factory on how worthless and how not good he is, I'd be interested in that resolution. It's interesting, Norville Dad has welder's mask, and of course, obviously, he's the red herring. You've seen him, it's just, the structure of the show is so obvious, it's so paint by numbers, it's just so obvious that yes, he's obviously the red herring because we're in the 9th episode, and then by the end of the episode, we'll know who is actually the murder-death killer, okay? But we see Velma finding the welder's mask in his office, and then we see a shot of Norville's dad being creepy, and then the next scene picks up from that transition, and it's like, that's not how conversations work. Would Velma have any conversation with the father of Norville? I would love to hear the conversation, because there's just a bunch of things that Velma just sprung on Norville. Like, Norville had to go tell his father that he's pretending to take care of a child, and I guess Norville's father was like, yo, that's probably a really good idea, because you can learn things such as how to take care of a child. you know, life skills such as that, so I'm pretty sure he's on board. But still, dude, come on. You just sprung up a bunch of things on him, Velma. Why do you gotta do that? Also, we see an interaction with Fred's mother. Victoria Jones is her name. She is saying stuff like, here's an exact quote that I actually have. Just as long as you're popular enough to do whatever you like a homophobic chicken sandwich chain. So first of all, that's a diss on Chick-fil-A. And second of all, she was talking to Daphne in that scene because the context of the scene is that Daphne said that she's no longer popular. And it's like, learn a skill, Daphne, I don't know. Learn something practical. Okay, learn a trade, learn anything, please. Get into construction. I don't know, anything to benefit society, Daphne. Popularity does not benefit society directly, I guess. It kind of does adjacent because I feel having a bunch of obnoxious snobs as like a main focal group of a school motivates the other people not in that group who is being ridiculed to either A, become a loser, or they can motivate themselves to become better and like have skills, have adult lives. You know, that's my solution for Daphne. But you know, she's like, oh, I want to be popular. But it seems like the Victoria Jones knows what she's talking about. She's just like, yeah, just pretend to be in a relationship with Fred. And of course we see that Fred and Velma and Daphne are on the same place. Fred and Daphne have a kiss and Velma is jealous, of course. Also, there's a baby rolling loop, very obvious. It was definitely probably like 5 or 6 frames. 6 to 8 frames. I'd give them that, but you know, it was very obvious. The baby rolling loop, okay, thanks. Also, the Velma mom at the end of the episode, first she's like, oh my goodness, I can remember everything. And then she's like, I am the serial killer. And it's like, first of all, you ended it on the cliffhanger, and then you have the 15 seconds of credits, and then you have immediately the next scene. It's just okay. Also, I just really am so mad that they didn't stick with the misdirection at all. Like, wow, why couldn't you? First of all, you set it up so she was the killer, and then she's like, I'm not the killer, and then you see it do some cheap tricks. She's like, oh, I'm not the killer. I don't remember. It's like, oh, it's all obvious, so you're stringing us along. Oh, come on. But then she's like, oh, I do remember. I'm the killer, and I have to figure out why I did it. And it's like, you're just coming up with reasons on the spot. It's not believable. There's no journey for me to actually believe that you feel and believe these things. You had an epiphany. It just feels like you're making up excuses. But that's the end of episode 9. Now it's time to talk about... Oh my goodness. Wow, we've made it, guys. I know there's a renewal for season 2, but honestly, unless someone pays me to review the season 2 of Velma, I don't think I'm gonna do it. Wow, this show is such a slog to go through. Season is done. Episode 10 is called The Brains of the Operation. Do you want to know why Velma's mom is the murder, death, kill woman? It's because she wants to put the brain of a popular girl in Velma's head. My first thought immediately was, how will you dispose of Velma's brain? Okay, she's clearly got a no good brain according to your standards, Velma's mom. Can't have all moms love their children. That's just a harsh reality of life sometimes. But that's fine as long as Velma is independent. No, she's not independent actually of her mom. She's had hallucinations just thinking about her mom, and I'm just thinking, maybe you should just keep away from your mother because she turned out to be the serial killer. She has harmed your community. Not that you actually care that much, Velma, but she is so evil? Is it evil? Is wanting to replace a brain with another brain evil? It seems shallow. That's my first read. It's like, well, brains can change. There are certain fundamental, like, hard set things about brains, but otherwise you can change stuff about you. You can be more wanting to be more nice. Definitely change position of your hair if you have a wig, but you can't change that position of hair on your actual head. But you can change habits. Like, you can actively decide to, I don't know, first thing that comes to mind, brush your teeth in the morning. And you can actively force yourself to do that. You know, that's a habit you can change. You can do that with Velma being such a terrible person. You can reward good behavior. Give lots of chocolate to Velma in order to teach her. So the good things about friendship is caring about the other person. And it's interesting that Velma does not really care. She just wants to not care and use all of her friends, which does come out in this episode. I appreciate that part. Also, Velma is now being framed for murder because Velma's mom did serial killings. And it's like, first of all, this is presumed to take place in the United States of America, and in the United States of America, just because one person committed a crime that you're close to does not mean that you yourself committed the crime. That is such backwards logic. Like, the only thing I can really compare it to is North Korea. Velma, everyone around you is like a dictator or loving the dictator. I don't know, Velma. What reality do you live in? Also, we have the mother has a van. There's some damage to it, but Fred buys it up and draws a bunch of terrible, terrible flowers on the side of the van. And it's like, oh, it's like the mystery van, but if it had no color, so it's white and flowers. And on the side, I like how oh, it's on the side, okay. On the side of it, man, I wrote so many notes. Fred Jones Spooky Stuff Hunter. I liked that. Very childlike. He seems to believe in ghosts now. But that's not the only thing I want to talk about. First of all, Velma herself is saying stuff such as, oh, wouldn't it be in like teenagers, a bunch of teenagers hanging out in the van? Having a bunch of teenagers hanging out in the back of a white van seems to be trashy and pedo-tinged. That's what Velma said about Scooby-Doo, the franchise that it's playing in, okay? So meta to call yourself pedo-tinged when you yourself are also playing with that Scooby-Doo label. If it was a satire, this is not very good satire, okay? Satire is supposed to be clever, okay? This is not clever. I don't know much of backstory on who created Scooby-Doo except for Hanna-Barbera. I know their names. They've created a lot of cartoons. They are very influential, okay? If they've done something to your not liking show, I guess you can't really, don't know how to separate the arts from the artist, it seems, because look, I don't condone that behavior either, if it has happened. It just seems that you're calling all of the fans of Scooby-Doo, like anything related to Scooby-Doo, as pedo-tinged. And I, as somebody who appreciates culture There's a culture around Scooby-Doo, and introducing this to the culture of Scooby-Doo is not good, because it's hateful. It seems like the show people hate Scooby-Doo, and I'm not a big fan of creating things that you hate just out of spite for the fan base. This doesn't seem like that. Also, wow, drink water if you haven't. Also, the fact that this show has naked teenage girls getting murdered is quite ironic, because I feel like maybe the show themselves, the showrunners themselves, are calling themselves out on this one. I don't know much about them, just the writing on the wall, the writing in the show versus what you're calling the show and the people who run it, or the culture around it, I guess, is bad. That's what I think the showrunners are also outing themselves as that bad, I guess. I feel like the show is like the worst offense, because everything's just flat out on like right in the open, and not in a good way. It's like the agitating way, like, stop it, you're not funny, Also, in order to talk to Velma's mother, Velma herself is like, the only way to do that is not to use the visitation. It's instead get myself arrested, and the way that Velma gets herself arrested is very egregious, okay? Also, I should mention before I continue further that Fred and Velma have become friends again. Things make up very quickly. The show goes very quick. And we have Fred being like, you know what? I will help you. Also, what do you need help with? Oh, Velma wants to be arrested? Velma's like, oh, arrest me, police officer. The police officer's like, no. Okay. And then Fred is like, what if she disturbed me? And then she gets arrested. And the show is saying the joke of that scene right there, is that white people can just ask minorities to be arrested for a perceived disturbance. And it's racist. It's just like, I feel like the show is supposed to be out as outrageous as possible. I feel like this is all on purpose. The rage that I feel inside for this show for just being bad. I feel like this show is just propelling all of the bad human traits that exist in people and amplifying that and saying that it's good. I don't like that at all. It's just so bad. Also, Daphne lets Velma out of jail. What a good girlfriend. It would work if Velma was a good person. But Velma's not. She gets another free one. But now Velma is having hallucinations again. Oh, right in time for a convenient plot twist, okay? And she has hallucinations now and goes back into her memory. And apparently all of the actions of Velma's mother left 2 years ago. Okay, so I see that the father being very quick to have a baby. I kind of understand her pain, but she was thought to have died. Okay. Also, it took place 2 years ago. Velma, 2 years ago. The little toddler version of her, my first guess was, oh, that must be her when she's like, I don't know, 6. But no, she's supposed to be in high school now. And so the youngest age you can be in high school is 14, 15, and I'm assuming she's 14. So in that 2 years ago, she was 12. So now she's 14. And then this is also, with that knowledge in mind that she is in fact 14 herself, they do another high school nudity thing where they're just straight up like naked and there's a little fog covering their areas. But you can clearly see that the animators have drawn out fully formed females. I like that alliteration. Also, here's a contrast. Velma is now naked herself. Is this supposed to represent that Velma is now comfortable with herself, now that she's got all the acceptance that she would ever need? And also, Velma, now that Norville has gone away. Also, I love how Velma has never called or listened to a voicemail by Norville, ever, but now she is. She's listening to all the voicemails, and Velma calls up Norville, and Norville has a voicemail box message like, leave your message at the Toad. You know that? Also, Velma, you're a piece of shit. At this point, Velma just realizes that she deserves to be loved. This does not feel earned. Velma's terrible. Oh, I deserve to be loved, actually. But that's not the problem that you have, Velma. The problem that you have is treating the others with respect, that they deserve to be loved by you. Not that you know you deserve to be loved. It's not an epiphany that you just had. Also, Velma finds Daphne and Fred kidnapped by the killer. Great. And then there's Glass's gag. But Velma says, I hope this doesn't keep happening, instead of saying, Jankies, I can't see without my glasses, woo! But she just like picks it up. Man, the show hates Velma, I guess. Like the character, the original character, not this well, the show hates Velma. Man. Also, turns out that the serial killer mother was framed. Why? She's been hypnotized. She says this thing over and over again every time someone asks, why did you do that? And she's like, oh, I killed you to switch the brains out. And so Velma is like, oh, you've been hypnotized. Who's doing the hypnotism? Oh, we got the killer. Let's unmask the killer. And it's Victoria Jones, which is a surprise that caught me off guard, but also makes sense. Victoria Jones is very vicious, and her reasoning is so she can switch the brains of somebody who's more capable of running a business with her son's Fred brain. And I'm like, what would you do with Fred's brain? Are you going to keep it in the jar, preserve it? Also, the continuity is pretty interesting because it seems, oh, this was definitely thought out, but I don't feel anything about it, really. I mostly just felt, oh, you know, I'm surprised the show's kind of good at this specific moment. So the brain experiments worked. The brain swapping experiments worked, but Velma's mom reversed the lab after finding out some sneaky stuff that Victoria Jones's dad was going to do with her project. So she's like, no way. But then Victoria Jones not took so much, but she got hypnotized, actually. And she gets hypnotized to recreate the brain switching experiments lab, so that can be happening yet again. And so there's the brain thing in the hypnotism thing. That sounds a lot like Get Out. I just felt like the show is doing Get Out, and it's like, if I wanted to watch Get Out, I'd watch Get Out, come on. Also, her reasoning is, oh, whoa, if I just replace the brain of like a female high school girl who has the ideas of popularity, but will appreciate the advantage of being in a rich, white, male body. And it's like, first of all, have you ever seen a woman? Women have them curves, okay? I just find that a lot more people find women attractive. Like, for example, I'm pretty sure lesbian porn is very popular. It's actually like probably one of the more popular pornographies that are out there. Also, Fred is fighting his parents. Good on you, Fred. Good on you. Fred has to fight his parents. I like that part, because obviously the parents are insane. But unfortunately, Victoria has his hand on Fred still. Fred is able to be easily convinced because the brain swapping procedure has not occurred. And it's interesting because she gets hit with a wave of reality. First thing of reality that happens, Daphne and Velma kiss because they think they're about to die. And Velma says Norville during the kiss, and then Norville comes swinging on a rope. I love you too, Velma! And it's like, oh, great. Victoria Jones is then, after that, bloody gored by a falling boulder, and Velma is like, happy dance, I solved the mystery, and then she's twerking as we see the expression of Fred, who has just lost his mother, and we have Daphne who's like, what? I just saw someone die, and then we have Norville puking, and it just seems like like satire, but not in the way that the show has intended it to be. Maybe this way the show intended it to be, is just like Velma dancing on like a bloody, gory mess, and it's comically gory. Like a lot of blood. She's really dead. And Norville and Fred are not friends. They kind of hang out more. They all start fighting because everyone hates each other. Wow, they're such good friends, I can't believe it. Norville's dad, of all people, suggests to Norville, have you tried marijuana? And it's like, oh, hey, look, it's a joke. It came back, now he's closer to his real life persona, I guess. Okay, that's fine. Norville smokes the silly salad now. And the show ended on a man joke. Like, oh, men are the butt of the joke in this show. And then a policeman just gets randomly slashed. Oh boy, those are all my thoughts on those episodes, except for, wow, Velma is just so astronomically bad that I don't want to see another season unless I get requested to review Velma episodes, because wow, this was a doozy. It's not good. It's kind of, earlier in the season, I gotta admit, it was more fun to watch it because it was just so bad. There's the curve of like, if it's really bad in quality, but like, it's so bad that it's funny. And then you have, oh, it's really good in quality, and it's good because it's really good in quality. But then you have the middle, oh, well, it's not that good, it's not that interesting, so why would you watch it? I felt like more of the middle episodes landed in that territory more as the show went. These last few episodes just felt rushed, honestly. It was the most rushy thing. I wouldn't say the most rushy thing. It's just so rushed. The animation. There's some fight scenes that a lot of the animation seemed to be dedicated towards. Epic. Amazing. I appreciate none of it. I don't know if I'll remember Velma, because I don't know if I want to. The 9th episode, I think I'll give it a 2, and the 10th, the season finale, a 4, and I only give it a 4 because first, it's the end of the season, and I'm very delighted and happy, but more importantly, the subversion that it's actually Victoria Jones who's the killer. I was surprised and caught off guard by that, and I can't believe that's my standard. Well, if that's my standard, then I gotta give it a 3. Okay, first of all, the season finale is a 3. Changed my mind. And now it's time to review the entire series, okay, as a show. So the first 10 episodes of the show, what do I think? First of all, I felt like there was very little thread of plot going through the day-to-day, the moment-to-moment, beat-to-beat episode plot structure. It was more like the premise of the entire show would be brought up in between like just statements or flat out statements that either it seems to be attempts at humor or just like some social commentary and like, yeah, girls do this, and some meta commentary. The show definitely got more meta at the end. So basically the first scene of Velma where she's typing on her phone, that's meta. And then the show is just, it's slow. It feels bogged down by just unnecessary jokes that are not necessary to the plot, which is what I mean when I say unnecessary. It's not necessary to progress the plot forward, but whenever the plot needed to be progressed, it was just like given. It was like, oh, the solution appeared. Wow, now we're gonna go this direction because the solution appeared. It's just like, I don't know what the thought process is. I would like to know the thought process of Velma. Why is she going through all of this the steps to understand where, like, why would she pick up on these details. Like, I got distracted by the cops coming for Velma because her show is so bad. Mainly, it's a crime against humanity to be so bad. Have a bad show. That's why she's the cops are coming and she's getting arrested. Mainly because of the badness of the show itself. But wow, Velma definitely doesn't pick up in speed. It feels like a lot of the show is evenly paced, but evenly paced in how much little information you get from each interaction. You maybe get one piece of information that propels to the next scene, and definitely not a fun choice, not an enjoyable watch, honestly. It just seems this show entirely depended on rage, and the story. The twists were okay, you know. I appreciate the twists given how bad the show is. I guess if you want to seem good, you gotta hide you gotta hide within all of this terribleness, and then you have one gem. Wow, I have this one gem, and it's like, oh my god, you found a gem! Ah, you're so good! And it's like, no. It doesn't stand alone as like a piece of art, like, at all. I don't like it, okay? I'm not a fan. As an enjoyable, watchable series, just like generally, if you're going to binge it, it's just seems plotless. What it seems like is there's a bunch of, oh, I want to do this. I want to have them fighting. I want to have them have volleyball. How we do that? Okay, well, we're gonna say this thing, and now they're gonna do volleyball, and it's like, oh, fine. Overall, though, the show gets a 1.0 for cohesiveness. It's not very cohesive. A little bit of cohesive, but not really. If you like this review, be sure to watch another video. YouTube really likes that. You can also like, comment, subscribe, share this video with everyone you know. The ultimate goal of this channel is for me to become an expert movie reviewer, so if I haven't reviewed it on the channel, there's a chance I haven't even seen it at all. If you'd like to request a movie in the comments below, you can do that, or you can fast track a movie review request at patreon.com/ASEPresents. $20 a month for one movie review per 1 month. $30 a month for how to draw Pokemon tutorials will be posted there first, plus 250 vlogs that are up there right now at patreon.com/ASEPresents. And if you'd like to help support the daily grindiness, my Fansly is free to follow. It really helps with the daily grindiness of all these daily movie reviews. So you can go here. And until next time, I'm in Salad Sauce. See you later, my sour cream, the bacon bits.